Breaking news tonight in the search for Nancy Guthrie.
Before I give you a single update, I need you to sit with one number. 41 days. That is how long Nancy Guthrie, an 84-year-old woman who depends on daily heart medication to stay alive, has been missing. 41 days. And as of this recording, no arrest, no named suspect, no public press conference from the agency leading this investigation since February 5th. That is 36 days of silence from the Pima County Sheriff's Department. And yet, a retired FBI special agent who spent her career building investigations exactly like this one posted something publicly this week that stopped the entire true crime community cold. 4 words. 4 words she has not used once in 41 days of covering this case. She wrote, "half glass full." I'm going to tell you exactly what she said, exactly what she meant, and exactly why every single piece of confirmed evidence in this investigation points in the same direction she is pointing. But I need you to hear the evidence first. Because when you understand what investigators actually have in their hands right now, those 4 words won't just sound hopeful. They will be the most logical conclusion available from the confirmed record of this case. Stay with me, because halfway through this video, I'm going to show you something that almost no outlet has reported on. Something 2 of the most credentialed law enforcement voices in America said about what may have actually happened on that porch, and it will change the way you understand everything that came before it. Her name is Jennifer Coffindeffer. She is not a podcast personality. She is not a social media commentator filling time between ads. She is a retired FBI special agent who worked inside the institutional machinery that is now pursuing Nancy Guthrie's kidnapper. She has been tracking this case publicly from day one, posting on X, speaking to Newsweek, appearing across national broadcasts, and she has a record in this investigation of saying exactly what she sees. Not what sounds good, what she actually sees. When the unidentified vehicle captured on a Ring camera near the abduction window had not been identified by law enforcement, she said clearly that is concerning. When the DNA challenges were confirmed by Sheriff Nanos, she addressed them head on. She does not spin. She has never once called this case close when it was not. Which is why when she posts the words "half glass full" and says she's hoping law enforcement is getting closer, you need to understand what that means coming from her specifically. She is reading a pattern. Her name is Jennifer Coffindeffer. She is not a podcast personality. She is not a social media commentator filling time between ads. She is a retired FBI special agent who worked inside the institutional machinery that is now pursuing Nancy Guthrie's kidnapper. She has been tracking this case publicly from day one, posting on X, speaking to Newsweek, appearing across national broadcasts, and she has a record in this investigation of saying exactly what she sees. Not what sounds good, what she actually sees. When the unidentified vehicle captured on a Ring camera near the abduction window had not been identified by law enforcement, she said clearly that is concerning. When the DNA challenges were confirmed by Sheriff Nanos, she addressed them head on. She does not spin. She has never once called this case close when it was not. Which is why when she posts the words "half glass full" and says she's hoping law enforcement is getting closer, you need to understand what that means coming from her specifically. She is reading a pattern, a very specific pattern, and I am going to walk you through every signal in that pattern one by one until the same conclusion she reached becomes unavoidable. In an interview that aired on the Today Show in early March, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos told NBC News directly that investigators are, and hold this word, definitely closer to tracking down the suspect seen in the surveillance footage. Not possibly closer, not cautiously optimistic, definitely. Law enforcement officials do not use that word carelessly in active federal investigations. Former FBI intelligence analyst Jennifer Dobler, who spent 13 years inside the Bureau specializing in intelligence collection, told Newsweek the statement was atypical for law enforcement officials, which is exactly the point. Atypical language from a lead investigative official in a case this significant is not accidental. Another former FBI official offered the second reading, and it is the one that matters for understanding where this investigation actually is. When investigators say they are closer and reference hot leads, I'm single case.
Coffindaffer described the structure in a recent interview. It is a red-hot case with agents, analysts, and Pima County Sheriff's officers working all actionable leads. Red hot, not cold, not cooling. The investigation did not get smaller because it ran out of leads. It got smaller because the number of leads worth pursuing has narrowed to the ones that matter. That is not retreat. That is focus. On March 10th, Coffindaffer posted publicly on X, wondering why Sheriff Nanos keeps turning away proven very capable civilian search experts. Is law enforcement close to an arrest? And do they already know what happened to Nancy, so they don't want to waste the valuable resources of these groups? This is what triggered her half-glass-full post, and it deserves to be understood fully. The United St. John Navy, a professionally structured nonprofit with a documented record of contributing to major search operations, submitted a 41-page operational plan to Sheriff Nanos. Thermal drones, 25 trained canines, coordinated desert grid sweeps by experienced personnel who have worked this exact terrain. Not a vague offer, a specific, professional, documented proposal. The sheriff's office responded with one sentence: "This work is best left to professionals." There are two interpretations of that decision. The first is bureaucratic defensiveness, a sheriff protecting turf. The second is the interpretation Coffindaffer arrived at, that the search phase of the physical ground-level sweep of desert terrain may no longer be the primary operational priority, because the investigation has already moved from finding to identifying, from searching to closing in. If you already know where you're going, you do not need thermal drumlins covering the desert. You need detectives at desks running down the last confirmed leads before you move. Andy Guthrie's vehicle was returned to the family. This detail surfaced through Coffindaffer's analysis and has not received the attention it deserves. In the early stages of the investigation, law enforcement took custody of multiple vehicles associated with the case, including the vehicle belonging to Annie Guthrie, Savannah's sister. Standard procedure. That vehicle has now been returned. In investigative terms, that means one thing, primarily. Investigators have already extracted everything of value from it. The forensic picture it contributed has been incorporated into the larger analysis. They got what they needed, they gave it back. Evidence is being worked through and released. The machine is moving forward, not standing still. The FBI returned to Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood in mid-March. Every outlet treated it as a sign of desperation. That reading is exactly backwards. Retired FBI Special Agent Jason Pack, who was instrumental in the early weeks, and who described recovering the Nest camera footage as finding a needle in a haystack, explained precisely what the return canvas means. When agents canvass in the first 48 hours, they are working with a rough timeline, but timelines sharpen.
As cell phone records come back, as Walmart purchase data is analyzed, as clothing gets traced through retail channels, the timeline tightens, and suddenly a neighbor's answer that seemed irrelevant 3 weeks ago becomes critical. That is the investigative process of retroactive significance. Evidence collected in the first days of a case often does not yield its full value immediately. But as each new layer of confirmed information arrives, details that seem disconnected suddenly connect. The FBI returned to that neighborhood because they now know exactly what they are looking for. That is not desperation. That is precision. Now I need to stop and show you something, because what I am about to walk you through is the part of this case that most national coverage never fully addressed. It is the analytical frame that two of the most credentialed law enforcement voices in this story arrived at independently. And it resets everything you thought you knew about what happened on that porch. Stay with me. John Miller is CNN's chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst. Before joining CNN, he served as the NYPD's Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism. Before that, he was an assistant director at the FBI itself, and then a deputy assistant director of national intelligence. 2 Peabody Awards, 11 Emmy Awards. He published a detailed analysis of this case at the 1-month mark, and in it, he said something that I believe is the single most important analytical statement anyone has made publicly about this investigation. Here is what he said, word for word. There is always the possibility that this was some kind of planned home invasion that went completely sideways and was re-engineered into being a kidnap for ransom because the suspect's opportunities had shifted. Let me go through that sentence carefully because every word is doing specific work. Planned invasion, not a burglary.
A home invasion, a crime where the target is the home and the person inside it. The resident is part of the plan, as a witness to control, a target to harm, or a hostage of convenience. Went completely sideways, not slightly wrong, completely wrong. Whatever the masked figure came to that house to accomplish in those 41 minutes, it did not survive contact with what actually happened on that porch. Re-engineered, the crime changed shape after the fact. The plan that was ultimately executed was not the plan that was made. Someone had to improvise under extreme pressure and make decisions about how to explain what had already happened, because the suspects' opportunities had shifted. Their options changed. What they came to do was no longer possible. What they needed to do to protect themselves was different from what they intended. And then Miller said this: "The key denominator here is the blood outside the front door, which offers a strong suggestion that whatever type of crime it started as, things began to go wrong very quickly. The blood is the denominator. The blood is the evidence that the crime changed. Why were the ransom notes sent to media outlets instead of the family directly? Because they were not written by someone in a position to negotiate. In every documented kidnapping for ransom, contact is made privately, a direct channel is established, a return address, a drop location, a way to put money in someone's hands and get the person back. That is how it works. That is how it has always worked. That is not what happened here. The first ransom note arrived at TMZ and at 2 Tucson television stations. It demanded $6 million in Bitcoin. It set a deadline.
It contained no way for the family to respond. No return address, no phone number, no drop location. CNN's Miller described it as a one-way conversation. A ransom note that cannot be replied to is not a ransom note. It is a statement. Why did communications stop so abruptly after the deadlines passed? Because there was never going to be a negotiation. The notes were not the plan. Miller's framing, they were an attempt to re-engineer a disaster into a transaction, to give law enforcement something to chase, a living hostage, a ransom demand instead of what may have actually happened on that porch. Miller asked directly, could someone come up with a ransom note to disguise a home invasion where the victim may have been seriously injured to salvage their crime? Salvage? The crime went wrong, and the notes were constructed to salvage something from it. I am not telling you Nancy Guthrie is dead. That conclusion has not been officially reached. The family stated as recently as late February that they believe she is alive. The investigation is open. The reward is active. Former FBI agents Coffin, Daffa, and Bringing have both said this week that an arrest may be close, and investigators are operating under the presumption that Nancy is still alive. But what Miller and former FBI agent and CIA officer Tracy Walder are independently describing is the logical architecture of a crime that may have been something other than a kidnapping and was then represented as a kidnapping after the fact. And if that is true, it means the people who did this were not trying to collect $6 million from Savannah Guthrie. They were trying to get away. Now let me give you the confirmed physical evidence portrait of the suspect, because this is where the investigation becomes concrete. Former FBI supervisory special agent and criminal profiler Jim Clemente analyzed the doorbell camera footage released by the FBI on February 10th in detail. His findings are confirmed and have been independently supported by other forensic analysts. A tattoo is visible on the suspect's right wrist in the footage. Clemente told Fox News Digital that if confirmed, it will be instrumental in helping investigators both include and exclude persons of interest. Tattoos are permanent, they are distinctive, they are visible in daily life. The people who know you see them every day. Sheriff Nanos confirmed on record that footage appeared to show a ring worn on the suspect's pinky finger, visible through his thick protective glove. Nanos said directly, "I see it. I see a ring worn on the pinky finger." A pinky ring is a specific personal accessory that someone who knows this man would recognize immediately in the FBI images. The suspect's black mustache is visible beneath the lower edge of the ski mask. His eyebrows, their shape, their heaviness, their distinctive arch are visible through the mask. Coffin Daffa addressed all 4 identifiers together in her Newsweek interview. Her assessment was direct. Between the ring, the tattoo, the clothing, the eyebrows, and the mustache, somebody knows who he is. Clemente's full profile, likely in his 30s or 40s, right-handed, not a professional. He did not anticipate the doorbell camera.
He adapted in the moment, but he left evidence. His failure to fully cover his face means he almost certainly left DNA at the scene. A person with a plan who improvised when that plan met unexpected resistance, and improvisation leaves evidence. Sheriff Nanos called the Ozark Trail hiker pack, the specific 25L backpack worn by the suspect, one of the most promising leads in the case. Investigators obtained from Walmart the complete purchase records for every Ozark Trail hiker pack sold over the past several months. Every transaction, every store, every date, every payment method. If that backpack was purchased with a card at any Walmart in the country, that transaction exists. The buyer's name is attached to it. Walmart confirmed it provided those records. Beyond that,
investigators reviewed surveillance footage from Walmart store cameras across the region. Every camera at every relevant register in every store where this backpack was sold. That is an enormous data operation, but it has a finite number of outcomes. Either they find the transaction and it leads to an identity, or the backpack was purchased with cash or through a resale platform. Nanos confirmed that possibility exists, but he also confirmed something else. There is still information authorities have not shared with the public from the lead investigative official on this case. That phrase is not nothing. It is a deliberate signal that the public picture of this investigation is incomplete, and what is being withheld is precisely what matters most for its final phase. 3 investigative streams are running simultaneously: cell phone records, Walmart purchase data, retail clothing tracing. Every device that was active in the Catalina Foothills neighborhood on the night of January 31st into February 1st generated data. Tower pings, connection records, geolocation logs stored by carriers. The FBI has subpoenaed those records. Analysts are comparing every device from that night against devices present around January 11th, when a neighbor observed a suspicious man conducting what appeared to be surveillance near NWA's home. A device that appeared on January 11th and reappeared on February 1st is flagged. A device that was new to the area and never appeared again is a primary target. Former FBI agent Joseph Jalone told Newsweek that cell phone records, online records, and video surveillance are the 3 instruments most likely to break this case. All 3 are running, all 3 are active right now. On the DNA, forensic investigative genetic genealogy has been initiated. The FBI confirmed this. It is the same technique that identified the Golden State Killer and helped crack the Bryan Kohberger Idaho murders case. The process compares DNA profiles against publicly submitted samples in commercial genealogy databases. If a relative of the suspect has uploaded their DNA to one of those platforms, the match can be made, and from the match, a family tree is built and the suspect is identified. The obstacle is time and database coverage. If no close relative has voluntarily submitted a sample, the match may not come through that channel. That is confirmed and real, but the DNA is one pathway among many running simultaneously. A single channel slowing down does not stop the others. Retired FBI agent Maureen O'Connell described the pressure environment around this case with one image that has stayed in the public conversation. She said, if there is more than one person involved, which I believe there is, they are now in an air fryer. It is just a question of who jumps out first. The suspect had a walkie-talkie, a weapon in a holster, a packed 25-liter backpack, equipment that required preparation and time before he ever reached that porch. Someone in his life saw that preparation. Someone saw him leave. Someone noticed when he came back. Koflan Sidafer told Newsweek, I think the number one way this case gets solved is somebody coming forward who knows him. Girlfriend who gets angry, a family member who calculates that $1.2 million is worth more than the silence they have been keeping. Former FBI agent Andrew Bringle confirmed the same pattern from a prosecutorial angle. These cases are solved when one conspirator decides they want out. One person, one call. The FBI tip line has received over 23,000 submissions. More than 700 were classified as credible. Every one of those tips is a piece of pressure on someone who is already living under the weight of what they know. 6 weeks of that weight does not get lighter. It compounds. Coffin has cited one case as the structural parallel throughout this investigation: Bryan Kohberger. 4 University of Idaho students murdered November 2022. A suspect who planned carefully, left little behind, and moved confidently through the weeks after the crime, believing he had not been identified. Then the DNA came back. The cell tower data converged, and in January 2023, approximately 5 weeks after the murders, law enforcement showed up at his parents' home in Pennsylvania, went through the garbage, found a Q-tip with DNA linked to Kohberger's father, and it was over. Week 5. The Idaho case broke in Week 5. We are in Week 6 of the Nancy Guthrie investigation. DNA is being processed. Cell phone records are being analyzed. Walmart data is in hand. Clothing is being traced. And a former FBI special agent who does not oversell anything, who said that is concerning when things were concerning, and who has now said something she has never said before in 41 days, is reading the pattern of how this agency moves and writing half class full. Let me bring this together. The task force is focused and operational. 4 detectives, 1 sergeant, full-time, single case, stationed at the FBI's Tucson field office. The physical evidence portrait of the suspect is documented. A tattoo on his right wrist, a pinky ring visible through his glove, a black mustache, distinctive eyebrows, a profile that places him in his 30s or 40s. The digital forensic pipeline is running on multiple parallel tracks simultaneously. The psychological pressure of $1.2 million and 6 weeks of FBI intensity is compressing everyone in this suspect's life. Who knows what happened? The civilian search organizations were turned away, and the most credible reading of that decision from someone who ran investigations inside the Bureau is that the search phase is over because the investigation has already moved to its final phase. 2 former FBI agents independently from different analytical frameworks used the same word in the same week: close. John Miller, former NYPD Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism, former FBI Assistant Director, said the blood on that porch is the key denominator, that it tells us the crime went wrong immediately. And what came after, the notes, the demands, the silence, may have been constructed to cover what was done to Nancy, not to recover her. Tracy Walder, former FBI special agent and CIA officer, said 4 words that carry the full weight of her career. It's just too targeted. Someone who knew this neighborhood, someone who had surveilled that house, someone connected through obsession or retaliation to Savannah Guthrie specifically. Neither of them said Nancy Guthrie is dead. I am not saying it. Behind every piece of analysis in this video is a family: Savannah, Cameron, Annie, who have stood in front of cameras and begged, who have placed flowers outside their mother's home and written cards that read, "Though we are surrounded by so much darkness, our love burns bright." What I'm saying is what the confirmed evidence says, what the confirmed investigative signals say, what 2 former FBI agents are now saying independently and publicly. 41 days in, an arrest may be close. The reward is $1.2 million. The tip line is 1-800-CALL-FBI Anonymous Confidential. Nancy Guthrie needs her medication. Her family needs her home. And somewhere in someone's life right now is the person who knows exactly where she is, sitting with the full weight of 41 days and $1.2 million sitting on the other side of 1 phone call. Somebody knows. Make the call.